I'm Rick Rogan. I've been in Young Life staff for 25 years, and my current role with Young Life is Regional Director of the Greater Northeast region, which includes the state of New York and then 5 of the New England states. What Young Life is it's a outreach to high school kids, and so what we do is we try to recruit, train, and mobilize volunteer leaders who have a personal relationship with God, and we train these leaders to connect with and build relationships with high school and middle school kids, and walk alongside parents to kind of point kids in the direction of a personal faith in God as they're trying to make decisions about their life and what they're going through, that they would turn more to a personal faith as opposed to what the world might have to offer them, whether it's drinking or any other things that the world might have to offer kids. We try to be a voice and invite kids into a relationship with God. My role as regional director, I'm primarily responsible for the supervision, the training, the recruiting, the hiring and firing of Young Life staff across the geography that I mentioned earlier. And so I am primarily in a direct supervisory role over all the area directors. And in our region, we have approximately 55 staff that are in the region, and we're broken up into clusters and smaller groups. And I have senior leaders that also help supervise and train other area staff as well. After I graduated from college, I had a double major in computers and business and did not know really what I wanted to get into. I had worked for Niagara Mohawk prior to that, which is the power company in Buffalo, New York, for the 4 years that I was in college. And I had a job lined up to do that after I graduated. I had been volunteering with Young Life the whole time and was working at a Young Life camp volunteer just after my senior year in college. And met Chuck Reinhold, who at that time was the regional director down in Washington, D.C., and as a result of that relationship and that conversation, he asked me to consider going on Young Life staff. And so right after college, I decided to go on Young Life staff, moved from Buffalo to Washington, D.C., and was there 7 years. And then about 18 years ago, moved up to Rochester, New York, where I served as an area director and stayed there long enough to become regional director of the geography that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, being on staff for 25 years, there's a number of struggles that come to mind as I think about that. One is just the relational struggle, where you're working with high school, middle school kids, and you work hard at building this relationship, and ultimately, more times than not, there's a sense of rejection where they give you the stiff arm relationally, or they're not interested in talking about issues of faith, or you feel like you're working really hard at the relationship and you don't see much fruit with respect to kids' lives or them responding. I think the heartbreak is when you work with kids and some kids continue to make poor decisions about their lives or where they're headed, and so you put all this time and energy into these relationships, and then you see kids who have an enormous amount of potential kind of throwing it away because of poor decisions. So I think that's a struggle. I think being on staff, it's not a lucrative position, so there's always an element of walking by faith where you want a community of people around you that care for both you and your family and that help provide for you financially. And so my wife and I can't really point at a big bank account or a huge savings, but we can point at kind of a wake of changed lives that is probably the most fulfilling part of it. So there's a sense of living on the edge when you're on Young Life staff because you're really dependent on people responding faithfully financially. And so, but I think the joys outweigh the struggles. So I would say probably the financial stress, in some ways the relational rejection, and just the schedule. When you're dealing with people, it's more than just a 9-to-5 job. You're kind of available and you're on call relationally with people. I think the reason I stay on staff is because when you realize that you have made an impact in a kid's life that lasts forever, you can't really put a price tag on that. And you look back over the last 25 years, and I can think of people and friends that I have made whose lives are eternally different as a result of just hanging in there and staying faithful. I think that you get an enormous amount of depth of relationship, not just with kids, but also with the people that you work with, the other staff, the other parents that you might be working with, or the committees in our areas that help support us. Like, you really become part of a community that you can't pay for. So while we might have challenges financially, relationally, it's just so deep and satisfying. And you really do. You get to witness miracles. You get to see God change the life of kids who other organizations or other people might say, there's no hope. You get to witness a kid really pass from death to life and experience a full life. And so that's what makes it worth it.